Hi, I'm Owen, the host of the Australian Finance Podcast. This podcast is proudly sponsored by BetaShares, one of the leading providers of ETFs here in Australia. Serving thousands of financial advisors and over 1 million investors, BetaShares manages tens of billions of dollars on behalf of investors right across the country. I'm proud to partner with BetaShares on the Australian Finance Podcast, Australia's premier financial podcast, because there is great alignment in the long-term philosophy shared by both businesses. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast. Hi, it's Owen Rask. In this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast, we're going to keep things brief. As you know, for the last few weeks, we've decided to condense some episodes into the really fun and high signal stuff that you want to know about without some of the fluff or the banter that comes with our regular episodes. So if you do want a longer form episode and you want to sink into the conversation, they'll be back in a couple of days. In this episode, I'm going to talk about a step-by-step guide on how to invest in property or buy property for the first time in 2025 and beyond. This is a definitive checklist on things that you should consider doing in order to buy a property, whether it's sooner or whether it's just, on time, but you're feeling comfortable. One thing you should know is that on our website, we have a free property course. We put this together with Australia's #1 voted mortgage broker and buyer's agent, Amy Lenardi. It is a complete first home buyer course and it is 100% free. I'm also going to talk about some resources throughout this short episode because buying a house is a really big and important step. One of our podcast co-host, Pete Wargent, who is a highly recognized 7-time author. He co-hosts our weekly Australian property podcast channel. He always tells me that buying your first home can either be a springboard or it can be more of an anchor. If you get the right property the first time, your next property will be way better than it was before and your wealth will grow quickly. If you make a mistake on your first property, however, it can go the complete opposite direction. So treat your first home seriously and follow the steps that I'm about to lay out. The first thing that you need to do to buy property in Australia and to do it right is to get an A team on your side. So when I bought my first property, I had Chris, who is the mortgage broker that I was speaking about before, Chris Bates. He helped me get the loan to buy our first house. A mortgage broker is the person that you go to that can help you determine how much you can borrow, if it's appropriate to borrow that much, and maybe some things that you can do with your income, like your salary, or things like credit cards or buy now, pay laters, HEX debts, those types of things. They can help you determine if it's important to pay those things off or to just simply not have them in the first place so that you can borrow the right amount of money to buy the property that you want. You can probably pick up what I'm putting down here in that they may work with you to have certain steps in place to ensure that you can borrow the maximum amount that you want for the house. This is why it is my first step, is reach out to the mortgage broker long before you start putting in bids to buy properties. I'm talking about, in some instances, 2 years before you intend to buy. You should at least give the mortgage broker months to work with you. They may be able to suggest things like, hey, don't start that business right now, because if you start that business, you need to wait 2 years before you can actually go to the bank, because small business owners need 2 years of financials in most cases to borrow money. The second person that you want on your side is an accountant, and not just any old run-of-the-mill accountant. Shop around. Get a good accountant who proactively supports you to make decisions that are for your future. Tell them that you're buying a house and tell them, is there anything that you think I could do to boost my income or to make myself look more attractive to a bank? A lot of people think, I'll just buy a property, get a loan, and she'll be right. But getting a loan is actually harder than it seems. So speak with a mortgage broker and speak to a good accountant and get them on your side, and it takes away so much of the uncertainty. And also, it means the mortgage broker can speak to the accountant and vice versa, so they can work for you when you're not around. The next thing to know is that an estate agent, a real estate agent, is not your friend. They may seem chummy, they may have a great smile, a pinstripe suit, and maybe even drive a BMW, but they are not on your side. A real estate agent is paid by the owner of the house you're buying to get the maximum price for that house. They can be lovely people. I've got friends who are real estate agents, but I've got to tell you, you do not want them in your brain and convincing you to do something. One of the things that they'd like to do is get you excited to buy a house. So try and be as data-driven as possible. If they're saying this house is worth $800,000 or your bid needs to be higher, be mindful that maybe you are right and they're trying to pull one over you. So use websites like Domain or realestate.com.au to try and get an accurate valuation of what the house is worth before you go into bidding stages or even appear at an auction. And that is tip number 3, be very careful of buying at an auction. There are certain legal obligations that come with buying a house at an auction, including the need to have the money almost there and then. If you buy through an auction, there are certain rules and regulations depending on the state in which you're located. So my tip here is either don't go to them or make your offer before the auction takes place. Auctions going back centuries are designed to get everyone emotional and competitive. So there's nothing better for the real estate agent than seeing multiple people trying to buy the same house and bidding up the price for no reason other than everyone's emotional about it. So you can open a negotiation and say, listen, this is my best and final offer. And I know the auction's on Saturday, but my offer expires on Friday. So you can put the ball back in their court. And this is where you can get another person on your side called a buyer's agent. Not everyone buys with a buyer's agent, but a buyer's agent, sometimes called a BA or a buyer's advocate, is someone that you pay out of pocket to go and do the bidding for you, to find houses that you might want to buy. And if you feel intimidated or you don't have someone in your life that could maybe go to an auction or to kind of negotiate properly with a real estate agent, go and get a buyer's agent on your side. We've got some people in our community like Pete, who I just mentioned, Pete Wargen, or even Amy Lonardi, who are widely recognized as very good buyer's agents. You can find them on any of the Rask podcasts, in particular our property podcast, to learn more about a buyer's agent. The next thing I want you to do, if you're starting to save for a deposit, is to make sure that you do not invest that money. Make sure you put that money in a high interest savings account. Yes, I know it's a lot of money. And yes, I know it seems like you're not really getting ahead. But at the time of recording this podcast, you can get pretty good interest on a savings account. So make sure you pop that money in there safe and sound and it slowly accumulates for your deposit. Another thing, on deposits, do I need 20%? No, you do not need a 20% deposit to buy a house in Australia. You can work with your mortgage broker to talk to them about, well, how much do I need? There are some professions like accountants and some teachers, for example, that work for certain industries or certain employers. They may not even need 20% at all or even a full deposit. And there are certain schemes available in different states that allow you to access the property market without a full 20%. The only reason that we say that you need 20% is so you can avoid something called Lender's Mortgage Insurance, or LMI. Lender's Mortgage Insurance is something that you pay, but it protects the bank if you default on your loan. So you can avoid that if you have a 20% deposit, but it's not black and white. It means you can have maybe a 10 or a 12% deposit and you only pay a little bit of LMI, not the full thing. Reach out to your mortgage broker who can help you determine this. The next thing I want you to be mindful of if you're buying your first house is the First Home Super Saver Scheme, or FHSS. I know it's a mouthful, but you can head to the pearler.com/FHSS URL. That's pearler.com/FHSS website. And they have a load of information, including links to calculators and resources to help you understand what the First Home Super Saver Scheme is and how it can be used to your advantage. In short, you may be able to boost your deposit by using super effectively. Now, if you're confused, get financial advice, but head to the website and learn more, as well as the ATO website. Finally, let's talk about buying the house, the exciting part. If you're in a couple or if you're buying as a single, a really good step to take is to create something called a property brief. This is something that Amy Lonardi from our free property course taught me. A property brief is effectively you sitting down with a blank piece of paper, using your phone or even on a computer, and literally just listing down the things that are essentials and the things that are nice to haves. Essentials might be things like close to public transport, or maybe you like to be close to a hospital or a school zone, something like that. The nice to haves might be like 2 bathrooms, a powder room, double car garage. certain aspects, or maybe it's on a hill or flat, certain roads, those types of things. Amy has a full breakdown of how to create your own property brief, but I can tell you in brief what I did. My wife and I sat down with a blank piece of paper, and in the middle we had a picture of a house that we drew, and around the outside we had just little images of the things that were really important to us. I work from home a lot, so I wanted fast internet. It needed to have the NBN available. We wanted it to have some nice flat block, but also have trees. We weren't too concerned about the size of the house. It just needed to be livable because we were happy to fix it up. And you can get the picture, so on and so forth. The property brief is a wonderful tool, and it's simple and it's fun, and it helps guide you when you go to realestate.com, or you go to Domain, or you go on the email list of your local real estate agents, which is exactly what we did, to get those properties that aren't actually shown on the internet. So that's a step-by-step guide. You'll find a full list of resources in the show notes, in the YouTube video. It's how you get into a property. My number one tip, more than any other, is get good people on your side to help you. Buying your first home is a big responsibility, but it can also be a huge unlocker of future wealth and an awesome lifestyle that you've always dreamt of. So get your A-team sorted, reach out to a mortgage broker, get your accountant on board, and then start getting stuck into saving and investing for your long term. Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.